Grundy. I'm your public speaking go-to. And every Monday, first Monday of the month, I will be here at noon to give you some public speaking tips, to have a conversation about public speaking and presentation skills, because that's what I do. That's what I love. And I really want people to level up their speaking skills. I want people to feel more confident, to be more credible, and to have a larger impact through telling story, through presenting their data, presenting what it is that they love to do, so that more people understand your services and your products, and also can connect with you and build trust with you, and you build trust with them. So with that said, I'm looking for the chat here. If you have any questions at all for me whatsoever, please put them in the chat. Or if there's something that you want me to cover today, please put that into the chat. Our focus for today's LinkedIn Live, also on YouTube as well, is vocal presence and physical presence. And so I'm going to dive in a little bit, starting with vocal presence and what that means and how we can practice that. And then I'm going to dive into physical presence, what that means and how we can practice that as well. So I hope that you will get some valuable insights today and some takeaways that you can use to help yourself become a better speaker with more impact. Okay, so if you're joining us right now, this is the Speakers Lounge. I meet every first Monday of the month at 12 o'clock Eastern time. And it's funny when you do things only once a month. I haven't quite gotten my introduction down as well as I'd like to. So maybe I should follow my own advice and practice more. Okay, so let's talk about practicing pitch and finding some vocal variation. And I'm going to give you a few exercises to help you out with this. The reason why this is so important is because we want to have as many tools at our disposal to help better engage our audience. So if we are constantly speaking in the same tone the entire time, we are going to lose our audience because they will start to tune out. It's almost as if, and we've all sat through these presentations where it becomes meditative, which isn't helpful to you as the speaker. You want people engaged and leaning in and listening. So hi, Tina, thank you for being here. What's an unrelated topic, but how do I get a 1-minute talk condensed to 30 seconds? That's a great question. I can answer that. And you are so welcome, Joel, you're welcome. I'm so glad that I'm able to do this for you. So I'm going to give an exercise, Tina, and then I'm going to answer your question. So the first exercise I'm going to invite people to try out, I just grabbed a book from my kid's bedroom. Okay. So The Day the Crayons Quit. You can pick whatever book you have on your bookshelf. It does not have to be a kid's book, but I thought this would be more fun. So I want you to open a page to a book. So I'm going to do it right now as an example. And I want you to find, that's the first thing that you see. I am not going to go digging for the best line possible to read to you right now. And I am just going to play with the words on this one page. And I like kids' books because it's simplified. So here we go. One day in class, Duncan went to take out his crayons and found a stack of letters with his name on them. So now I'm going to practice playing with that a little bit, okay? And don't be judgmental of yourself. Just play, 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 play. One day in class, Duncan went to take out his crayons and found a stack of letters with his name on them. I'm also physicalizing that too, because sometimes when you connect physical with the words, it changes the inflection of your voice as well. So now I'm going to give you one more example. I'm going to slow it down this time. One day in class, Duncan went to take out his crayons and found a stack of letters with his name on it. Now I'm going to do it really fast, just because. Here we go. One day in class, Duncan went to take out his crayons and found a stack of letters with his name on them. Okay, so you get the idea. Just find the same text, play with it. And you can play with the pitch, how high. So one day, Duncan, you could lower it. So what this does is it helps you get comfortable with playing with variation in your voice. So that is one exercise. And if you have any questions about that one, please feel free to put those in the chat right now. So that's an example of something that you can play with. All right. Now I'm going to answer Tina's question that she has in the chat, which is a great question. If you want to take 1 minute and condense it to 30 seconds. Well, there is an exercise that I have taken from my improv background. It's a game called Half-Life. I use the same exercise with my speaking clients, which is if you speak extemporaneously about a topic for, let's say, 1 minute, as Tina pointed out here in the comments, set that timer, say it for 1 minute, and then go back and then set the timer now for 30 seconds and say the same thing you said in the minute. You're not speeding it up though. You're just hitting the main points. And then you're going to say the same thing that you shared in the 1 minute in the 30 seconds. And then if you want to be even more concise, do it in the 15 seconds. And what I have found doing this exercise is not only does it help you be more concise, but it also helps you figure out what's important. Because sometimes what you say in that 1 minute is not necessarily, you might think of something you didn't think of in that 1 minute of exploration in the 30-second portion, and then also then in the 15-second portion. So this again is about playing and giving yourself some sort of a structure that you can work within to help you be more concise and to hear what is important. All right, so Tina, I hope that helps you out. And this can be done for any length that you're trying to build, become more concise within. I would say a lot of people can start being more concise within their introductions and the stories in their introductions. And if you're somebody who's more technical, that's delivering a lot of data and technical information, sometimes we can overwhelm our audiences with too much information. So this might actually be a great exercise for those of you who have a lot of information that you feel like you need to get out in a short period of time. I will also follow up by saying you don't need to give your audience the entire enchilada. So you need to give them the key takeaways and those points, but ideally you want to leave them wanting more. So this is a great exercise for conciseness. When is it okay to have notes to reference when presenting? I find myself not needing notes when very familiar with the content. Sometimes I need the notes if I'm presenting about a topic that I'm not as familiar with. I think it's totally fine to have notes personally, because you want to feel confident as possible. What I will say, however, is that whether that's on a confidence monitor, meaning they're in front of you and there's presentation notes, or if you're choosing to bring note cards up on stage with you, is to not write out your entire script, to find the bullet points, to make it very, very simple. And it's more of a guide for you than it is a script. Where I have found that notes don't work is when people stop trusting that they know the content and they use the notes, whether that be on the confidence monitor or in their hand, as the crutch. So really it's about showing up there and knowing your stuff as best as you can and trusting, and then using that as a guide. So hopefully that is helpful. Okay, great. So I'm going to give you another exercise, and I'm actually going to pick up that same book. So this one is about showing emotion, which emotion is important for that empathy connection. And we always hear about how it's important that in our storytelling, and that's why storytelling is so important, is that we want to build empathy. We want to have that emotional connect with our audience. And sometimes that means we ourselves can bring emotion, feeling into the words that we say. So how do we do that? Well, there are different ways that we can approach that. And one way in particular is you can take text. So I'm just going to flip to a page here. There's a bunch of letters in here that are written by kids, so I need to make sure I can read it quickly. Is you want to break it up emotionally. So what you can do here is take the text and break up, say, the first sentence. I'm just going to use the same example here that I did before. But so let's just say one day in class, you put a line there, and above that you put the word sad. Okay. And then in the next line, you break it up and you say excited. And then maybe the following line is hurt or angry. Let's just say angry. So we're going to get these three different levels of emotion. So the first one I said was sad, and then excited, and then angry. So I'm going to try to read that back to you now as an example for how I divided up this one little paragraph. Okay. So sad. And don't judge your acting skills either. This is an exercise. Be nice to yourself. Here we go. One day in class, Duncan went to take out his crayons. I was excited and then angry, and found a stack of letters with his name on them. And then you can practice that again. So sad, and then excited, and then angry. And this is going to help you find that emotional variation. I always ask people to also connect with where you're feeling the emotion on the inside. And I'm aware that not everyone has that same sort of access. But just recognizing, like, if sadness lives in your chest, to speak from that place, or if excitement lives in your face and also radiates from your heart, then speak from that place. But practicing those emotions, I think, is really important for the storytelling components of our presentation. Another way in to finding vocal variety, and this will be my last example for the vocal variation portion of this before I get into physical presence, is tongue twisters. I love myself a good tongue twister. So I'm going to teach you a simple one right now so that you can use this hopefully to start finding vocal variation. And I'll give you a couple of ways into that as well. So to start, since I live in New York, I'm going to do, you know, New York, you need New York, you know, you need unique New York. So what I'm going to do is for this round, I'm going to overly enunciate and articulate that tongue twister. So you know New York, you need New York, you know you need unique New York. Okay, and so this is a way, you've got 43 muscles in your face that are built up to help you with all those lovely facial expressions that we have. And this is going to help strengthen some of those muscles in your face as well. And also we want to be strengthening our larynx and the muscles around that area for vocal strength, because the more we can develop those muscles, the easier it is on our voices, and you're not going to exhaust your voice as much, especially if you're somebody who's a facilitator that is training all day long, or you're giving a longer presentation, which is something that you're not used to doing. So let's practice this again. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to inhale through my nose, and with the out breath, on the out breath, I am going to speak. So I'm not going to inhale, exhale, and then speak, because then there's no energy behind it. So here we go. You know New York, you need New York, you know you need unique New York. So I said all of that on one out breath, okay? That is something you can practice with as well, so that you're also incorporating intentional breath into your speaking. You can also repeat this over and over again. So putting the breath spaces in between each rotation. So let me do an example of that. You know New York, you need New York, you know you need unique New York. You know New York, you need New York, you know you need unique New York. And over and over and over again. So that's a nice way. Also, I'm physicalizing, I'm up on my feet, I'm saying it out loud, I'm using my body. Use your bodies, walk and talk. I cannot stress that enough. Okay, so another way you can play with this tongue twister is by taking on different qualities or characteristics. So I like to play with, okay, let's pretend, for example, you are a very high energy game show host on TV. So how might you say this tongue twister as that person? What are some of those characteristics and qualities? Well, they're really high energy. They use their voices louder than normal. They're excited. They're trying to get you engaged in what's going on. They want you to succeed, right? So you might go, New York, you need New York, you need unique New York, right? So you really get yourself involved in it and practice going a little bit over the top and outside of your comfort zone. So that's one example. Another one might be, I got a secret to tell you, and I don't want anybody else outside of these walls to hear it, okay? But I'm going to get you to lean in a little bit more, and I'm going to practice with my tongue twister. So, New York, you need New York. You need unique New York. So really finding different qualities and characteristics. Another one might be a famous person that you really admire. And one story that I like to tell is that my husband has worked with Bill Pullman, the actor, several times. And my husband's a musician and he's kind of an introvert and he doesn't like to go to these big presentations on the first day when he's working on a theater project, because they all have to present their concept, their creative concept for the play that they're producing and putting on. And so I said to him on the day of one of these presentations that he had to give, I said, well, who's somebody you really admire and that you've worked with that does this really well? And he said, well, Bill Pullman does this really well. And I said, great, then channel your inner Bill Pullman. What are some of those qualities that he has and some of those characteristics that he has that you can try on to be more confident in the room? And so he took my advice. And he did that. He channeled his inner Bill Pullman, and he said it was quite successful. And so some of those qualities that Bill Pullman had that my husband didn't have is just the coming in to the room, engaging right away, shaking people's hands, having that smile on your face, and then showing that genuine passion for the project that you have. And all of us are passionate, hopefully, about what we do and the work that we do. So why not show that passion? I feel sometimes get wrapped up in what professionalism looks like or how we're supposed to show up. And we forget that we love what we do. And so because of that, show it. Don't be afraid to show it. All right. So those were a few examples and exercises that I hope will be helpful to you about really playing with vocal variation and really building your vocal presence. So if anyone has any other additional questions about that, please feel free to put those in the comments. And even if you have something that has worked for you that I haven't mentioned, because I'm only here for 30 minutes, please put that into the chat, because I am a huge fan of community and helping each other out. And I don't have all the answers, and we are better together. So please put it in the comments and let's support each other. Okay. So now I am going to transition into physical presence. Now, physical presence is something I feel also is worthy of your time and your attention, because not everyone can just walk onto a stage confidently and own that space. That takes practice. It also takes practice to show up here virtually, and it's always an adjustment. So I encourage you to always watch back what you've done, or find someone that you trust that can give you feedback about your presence online and your presence on stage, because that feedback loop is going to be really helpful for you and your professional growth as a speaker. Thank you. Awesome exercises. Thank you. Really helps with the permission to play around outside your comfort zone. I'm glad you found value in that. And thank you for that comment. I appreciate it. So physical exercises, one, I'm going to say, you should always know where you are going. So when you walk onto that stage, you know exactly where you're going. And when you walk onto that stage, you're walking with purpose. You're not looking at your feet. And once that presentation starts, again, it's always about how you're going to be better engaging with your audience. You're speaking from the heart. Your body is open so that you can be seen, meaning heart space is open. You're not folding your arms. You're not stuffing your hands in your pockets. You're not hiding behind a podium, but you're allowing yourself to be truly seen. So it's all really about showing up and allowing that to happen. So here's what I'm going to give you there's a few exercises I'm going to give you here. One is the classic Amy Cuddy. If you don't know who she is, she wrote a terrific book called Presence, but you've probably heard of the power poses, standing with arms up in the air like this. I always like to say shoulders relaxed, elbows are not bent, and your palms are up towards the ceiling, and then just chin slightly up, and just noticing what that feels like as you hold that position and breathing it in and allowing your heart center to be open and just feeling that. And so sometimes that means that you might have to hold this pose for a minute or two or 3 or 4 or whatever until you start to really genuinely feel it in your body, that power that you hold. The other one that you can do is, of course, the superwoman one, the power pose with the hands on the hips and the legs are slightly, your feet are parallel and out just a little bit beyond hip width, and just standing there again with the heart center open, and you're standing tall, you're elongating your spine, and you're allowing yourself to be seen, and just holding that and noticing the confidence that you start to feel by just holding these particular positions for a certain amount of time, allowing yourself to take up space. So that is another exercise that you can work with. Joel, you put a comment in here. When is it okay to have notes in referencing when presenting? Oh, I think I answered that. I did answer that, didn't I? Tips for, I don't think that I said tips that to make sure that it doesn't look like I am reading. That's so a lot of that is just referencing your notes and then coming right back to the audience. That way, and I think I had mentioned the bullet points before. So if you can just, if I looked at this and I saw mirror work was on there, and so I know exactly where I am and what I'm going to talk about next. And I'm no longer looking at my notes, and I'm trusting the universe. So here we go. So that, I hope we're going to transition now into that point. Okay, this one might be slightly controversial, but I have a thought about mirror work. And what I mean by mirror work is practicing your presentation or your talk in front of a mirror. I personally feel like it is not the best use of your practice time for a couple of reasons. One, and I'll give you a backstory. I grew up dancing, and for the first, I would say, 10 years of my life dancing, it was always in front of a mirror. We'd learn the choreography in front of the mirror. We would learn, we'd do across the floor work. Everything was in front of the mirror, everything. And what that does is you become dependent on what the mirror is telling you. And you start to get really micro about what your own behaviors are. And sometimes this can actually hinder you from bringing your best self forward because you're being overly judgmental of what you see in that mirror, and you're trying to fix what can't be fixed. And two, especially in choreography, you become reliant of seeing yourself doing the movement within the mirror as well as what people are doing behind you, which doesn't necessarily pertain to you. But what that does is then when you get in front of an audience and there's not that mirror reflected back at you, it can actually hinder your confidence because you're not trusting yourself enough. So that's why I don't feel like the mirror is the best use of rehearsal time. Now, what I do feel could be the best use of your practice time is doing video. So recording yourself on video. And again, I said this earlier, giving it to somebody that you trust, whether that be a coach or a friend, that then can give you some valuable feedback about what they see in that video, or sending them a video of your past presentation. that is, I feel, going to be a better use of your rehearsal time and practice time when it comes to that type of work. So hopefully that resonated with some people. Now, instead of video or instead of a mirror, what I highly recommend is to walk and talk. You're always practicing your presentation out loud. You're practicing it up on your feet. You're visualizing that audience in front of you, or if it happens to be here virtually, you're practicing in front of that camera, the one that I'm speaking into right now, so that you get used to what that feels like and that you can do that for a longer period of time, especially for those of you who are giving webinars on a regular basis. You might get some of that feedback in the chat. Hopefully you're being interactive and engaging your audience in that way, but you're not able to see your audience. So practicing up on your feet in front of that camera as much as you can is going to help you, and it's going to help develop that confidence that's needed to really show up and be present. Same with in your bedroom or getting a office space or conference room, to just practice up on your feet, always out loud, always. I cannot stress that enough. And I still have clients who sit at their desk and scroll through their slides and practice in their heads. That is not going to serve you. It's time to start getting up on your feet if that's the way you've been practicing. I guarantee it is going to be a life changer for you. The other thing I encourage people to do is to chunk things out so that you don't get overwhelmed in the practice, in the practice process. So what I mean by chunking it out is practice maybe your introduction for 15, 20 minutes, then take a break. Take a 5-10 minute break. Breathe, go drink some water. Maybe you need to check your emails, but just take a break from your presentation. Then come back and maybe practice the second chunk of your presentation and practice that for 20 minutes. And before that 20 minutes is up, then go back to the introduction, put the two together, so that we're chunking it out and we're not overwhelming ourselves. We don't have to do the whole entire presentation in every sitting. Do you hold classes in the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia area, or hold weekend workshops in New York? Thank you, Joel. I do a lot of online classes. So I have a group called Confidently Speaking, which is improv for speakers on Wednesdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. I occasionally will, do a workshop in New York City. If I get enough people interested, sometimes I just put one together because of the interest that builds. And then typically what I do is I do in-person workshops if an organization hires me to work in particular with their team, or if it's an individual that wants to work with me in person. So that's pretty much how I work. But please reach out to me and maybe we can get something together. All right. Thank you so much. I also enjoy the creative process when putting presentations together. Yes, don't ignore that creative process. Very true. Do you have any steps you take that you feel are valuable or are prioritizing when putting together presentations? I do. I will address that. Yes. And Marian, I see you too. Thank you. I'm so glad that you are here. Yes, breaking up practice in segments it was a lifesaver for me because I used to try to take it all on at the same time and I would just stress myself out. And the other thing I didn't say is that we need to allow time for integration. Our brains can't consume all of that at the same time either that quickly. At least my brain can't. So back to your question, Joel, which is steps to take so you feel are valuable for prioritizing when putting. Yeah. So I like to always start with, I do like a 4-step process. One is always start with your audience and really get to know who they are and understand what their needs are. What do they know? What don't they know? What do they need to know so that you can really have a very comprehensive understanding of who's going to be in that room and how you're going to be able to best serve them and whatever pain points they may have. Then once you've established that, then I say you figure out, okay, for this particular audience, what is my objective for them? What is the end in mind for this particular audience? And then once you've clearly identified that objective and end in mind, then come up with 3 key takeaways. Most people can only retain about 3, but you can also come up with 5. I think that's, to me, the limit. 3 to 5 key takeaways that are going to lead them to that end in mind. So once you get really clear about those steps, then you start to look at your visuals and what visuals are going to best support those key takeaways and that overall objective. And then being really clear about your call to action. What is it that you need them to do by the end of your presentation? Or how do you need them to think differently by the end of that presentation? And being really clear about that as well. So those are the 4 steps with the adage of the call to action. So audience, 3 key takeaways, audience, end in mind, 3 key takeaways, and then your visuals. So I hope that helps. That's a really simple framework for where to begin when you're thinking about your presentation. And then of course you can start to embellish it with the story in your introduction or that really strong hook to get your audience to lean in and engage. And have fun with it. And I really love it when people think of things that are a little bit outside of the box, meaning what is a creative way that you can engage your audience that maybe you haven't seen before? Or maybe it's something that you did see that inspired another idea in you. So always be watching other speakers as well. That's going to also help you grow as a public speaker. So whether that be TED Talks or a conference that you've attended and you watched the keynote and you really enjoyed what they did and you had an inspired thought or idea based off of that, take notes, incorporate some of that. That's really going to help you grow as a speaker tremendously. Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. I've gone over my time. I'm here every first Monday from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Not 4 to 5, I didn't say that. 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. My Confidently Speaking group is Wednesdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can find me here live. And then I'm also here live once a month as well. With my dear friend JD Gershbein, where we have a LinkedIn audio room that is live. So please, if you haven't connected with me already, please do so. I love to help people out with their public speaking journeys. And great to see you too, Shoko. And all of you have a really wonderful and successful week ahead. Take care. Bye.